My name's Scott Wilson. This is an Everest Racing alcohol funny bike based on a GPZ 1983 GPZ 1100, but it is nothing like what Mr. Kawasaki first intended. We've got a custom chrome moly frame in it, which is around about 82 inches or just over 2 metres wheelbase. We've got 6.5 foot wheelie bars on it to try and keep the front wheel on the ground. We've got a very large turbo on it, mechanical alcohol fuel injection, multiple stages of retard and boost control. It really is a bit of a weapon. It's taken roughly 2 years to get to this point, and hopefully now we get to go fast. We've had a few dramas along the way, but that's what it takes when you're trying to go fast. So I'll just show you what it's like without its clothes on, and give you a bit more of an insight as to what it takes to try and go 200 mile an hour in 7 seconds. We'll start up here at the front. We've got a PMFR billet wheel. It's quite light. Twin discs on the front, even though in comp bike in Australia you don't need to run two. This is a big heavy bike with me on it at the moment. It weighs 760 pounds, so it takes a bit of stopping. So 2 brakes on there. Down here at the front we've got a comp CT3 billet turbo, ceramic ball bearing. That's a very fancy sort of piece of kit. Up under there, up under here we've got a Ultragate 38, which try and control the boost. Custom exhaust and temperature senders and everything all under here to try and help you, let you know whether it's living. Down in here we've got an MTC single stage lock-up clutch. It really needs a multi-stage, but that's what it had back in the day. You've got to remember this is from 1985, this engine, so it's relatively old compared to like a new late model electronic fuel injection ZXR or something like that. So you make do with what you got. Custom fuel tank in here that holds roughly around about 10 litres, believe it or not, and we'll use at least 3/4 of that at the moment on a run. We're very fat or rich, just to be safe. You make a lot more power when it's lean, but you then run the risk of hurting things big time. Up here, this is all fuel control for when the turbo needs more fuel. It's all a bit complicated. Back here we've got, believe it or not, a ART 10-inch sprint car ring on a motorbike. How cool is that? It's got a double bead lock, which means it's got these clamps on either side that hold the tyre to the rim, so you can run very low tyre pressures to get the real slingshot crinkly sidewall out of the hole. Along here we've got big long wheelie bars that actually support the weight of the bike, because hopefully most of the time the bike won't actually even be on the front wheel, not that you can steer it real good anyhow. It sits on that big fat 10.5 inch wide rear tyre, and these little teeny wheels here at the back, and that tyre, believe it or not, will actually go around about 2.5 inches, pretty much all the way up to about here when it's at full noise. So it's like having an extra gear as you go along. It's a bit of a fancy sort of thing. We've got a 630 pitch chain, which is one step down from the top fuel chain, because it's such a big heavy bike and it hits pretty hard off the line. You probably need to throw 2 or 3 of these out at a season, because they do stretch, even though they run around about 12,500 psi tensile strength, which is what this one is. We've got a custom side engine mount here, because with this engine originally made 120 horsepower on a good day. Now it's making a hell of a lot more than that, somewhere north of 400 at full boost. So all that is going through a semi-standard gearbox. So it's trying to tear the side of the gearbox off, trying to move this whole thing. So this here has got special output bearings and extended shafts and things to try and save the side of the gearbox. And because we run a mechanical fuel injection, we also need to have drives and everything for that. This is all the fuel shut off and controls. We have an air shift cylinder down here for the gear shift, because you actually hold the thing at wide open throttle, press a button up on the handlebars, and it slams it into the next gear. So that makes things happen real interesting when it shifts. We've had a few dramas with that, but hopefully we're on top of that. Up here is where you do all the tuning of the fuel system, or a fair percentage of it. Being a mechanical fuel injection, what you do is you actually vent more fuel back to the tank. The less fuel you put back to the tank, the more fuel's going back into the engine, and hopefully you go faster. So with alcohol, it gives you a tremendous amount of tunability. It's a bit of a black science, and you can get lost really easy because there's a great many things to change. It's not electronically controlled, so it's a bit like getting your Datsun 120Y to try and make 500 horsepower. It's quite difficult. Up here we've got a main battery, which is actually quite small, believe it or not. This is 410 crank amps. It weighs 980 grams, I kid you not. Up here we've got all the boost controllers, and this is the air shut off for the fuel. So that's a bit like a top fuel bike, in that if you lose electrician power or you lose air, it shuts the fuel. So that's sort of a bit of a safety sort of issue you have to have. Up here we have a Steve Rice mechanical fuel injection system, which is a hybrid Hillborn type deal. So it's a pretty fancy bit of kit. Not too many of them around. They work real good. We've got the air intake coming up over here, giant 50mm blow-off valve, because when this thing's making boost, this here spikes to well over 50 psi, and you need to save the turbine vanes in the compressor wheel of the turbo. So that's what that does. When you hear turbos and they have that real fluffy sort of sound when people are getting off it, that's actually real bad. You do that with a race thing like this and it will just go bang. So that's why we have all that on there. What else have we got? Up here we've got all the electronics, which does look a bit bad, but it's like that for a reason. Simply so that when we need to find things, because we've got roughly an hour between rounds, we can find what the problem was, hopefully, and be able to rectify it. Just makes it easier to fault find and take it out of the system. So up here we've got the data logger, which is an old one, but it still works okay. Shift light control, that other part for the fuel that cuts fuel out at certain times, main power rails and all other different types of things, relays and everything all through here, just so that you don't get backfeeding back through the system. The brains for the ignition is actually down under here. 2 stages of retard here. This is also part of my boost controller system that lets you know what gear it's in, so you have different boost at different gears. We run 10 pound off the line, 18 in second gear, 25 in third, and 40 plus in fourth and fifth, hopefully. We haven't got there yet, but we're going in that direction. This is the rest of the office. So what we've got up here is we've got electronic oil pump for Walbro to pull the oil out of the turbo, because it's a bit low and you don't want to build up oil in the back of the turbo. This turns the data logger off, arms the data logger, turns off different things for when you need the burnout and the run. You need to be able to do different things. This lets you know you're in first gear, which we've had dramas with. This lets you know that you're in burnout mode, so that there's no gear shift. This blinds you when it's preset when you need to shift gears. Believe it or not, it's actually hard to see, but it's actually very bright. This here is the O2 sensor, lets you know hopefully that you're not too lean, otherwise it starts blowing things up. This here, believe it or not, is a boost gauge. It's a bit sad because it only goes to 30 psi. Pretty soon, hopefully in a couple of meetings, we'll have that off the clock and somewhere near 40 pound. Over here we've got a PMFR billet beautiful throttle, which you have to have for this class with mechanical fuel injection, so that if the cable breaks you can actually shut the throttle. Believe it or not, that's idle, and that is full throttle. So when it's making 10 pound of boost, it's making a solid 135 horsepower, and you hold it at wide open throttle, and as the boost climbs it will skyrocket well past 400. So that all gets very interesting very quickly. Over here, this is the fuel shut-off. You have a Dyna remote dash that lets you do all different kinds of things without having to take all the top cover and everything off. Over here we've got a multi-switch clutch arrangement, and so what you do when you come up to the line, you pull that clutch in, and that has a little micro switch on it that activates the two-step, which gives you a secondary rev limit. You hold that wide open light switch throttle on, and it holds it at whatever RPM you've got set, hopefully for us around about 8,000, and then you hold your breath, and when the lights go yellow you go bang, and then things get interesting really, really quick, let me assure you. Then when that light comes on, you hit this little button over here, and in about 70 milliseconds it slams it into the next gear without slowing the engine down at all. First to second it's wide open, second, third and fourth it kills the ignition for a few milliseconds just to take the load off the teeth and allows it to go into the next gear. It is very, very violent, and it does break things, but it's the only way to go really, really quick. The price you pay. Up underneath there we've got all different kinds of wires and other switches and things. We've got 2 stabilisers. We only have to run 1, but we need 2 because when the front wheel does come down it does kick quite badly, and so it's a bit hard to keep straight. You don't drive these things how you do a normal bike. To turn right you actually have to turn the bike to the left, and the tyre is such a big square thing that you need to tilt the tyre like that and then put your weight on the right, and then it will go to the right. So of course that makes it really interesting when you get close to the wall, because you can't actually tip it towards the wall to turn away from it. So it's very, very different, a lot like riding a quad bike or a snowmobile, in the way that you have to steer it, because with the front wheel on the ground you can turn it and pretty much not much happens, to be honest. So that's the Everest Racing Funnybike. That's pretty much what it looks like underneath the skin. It's cost me a fortune. Makes a lot of noise, and believe you me, when you're at the line and you're holding that throttle open, there is nothing like it. Come and see us in the lanes. We'll be the ones hopefully making all the noise somewhere near the pointy end of the field, and here to have fun. So we'll catch you then.